Hey everybody, Kyle from Berkshire Worms. Today we're going to make an ACT or aerated compost tea. Real simple one. We're doing a cup of our worm castings, some C90 for a mineral supplement, kelp meal as microbe food, and it's also another good source of trace minerals. Alfalfa meal is another good microbe food. And this is our FPJ or fermented plant juice. I'm using this as our sugar source, and I add this at the very end, like a few hours before giving the tea. So I'll stir up the tea just with what I stirred this up with. So I'll give it a little bit of sugar, but I'm not gonna like pour much in. We also have an air pump and a little aquarium heater. I just use that to keep it at like 75 degrees. Otherwise it's like 60 in our basement and it'll be too cold. We wouldn't get much action. So 1 cup, I have 2 gallons of water. You can do a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of really good worm compost. This is just out of our worm bin. It's all finished. There's really nothing better for plants than fresh worm compost. I'm not doing a tea bag. It's just, it seemed like kind of an unnecessary step. We're just trying to extract the microbes out of our compost and multiply them. So the tea bag just kind of makes it a bit of a pain to clean. So this takes a little work out of it. And normally I go by a recipe, but that's for our 25-gallon brewer. We're just making 2 gallons. It's winter time, so it's just for some house plants. So the C90 is an awesome source of trace minerals. For 2 gallons, basically like a 1/2 teaspoon is all you need. It'll dissolve a little bit, provide a little bit of mineral supplementation to your plants. Kelp meal is good, microbe food, another good source of trace minerals for your plants. There's also water soluble kelp, which is a little bit different from kelp meal. That dissolves directly in the water. And that has a whole bunch of really good applications for your plants that I recommend. So just like a little sprinkle of the kelp meal. You want to also go easy on kelp. Kelp can be an accumulator of heavy metals. I don't know about this company. Down to Earth is awesome. I imagine as far as kelp goes, it's good kelp. Alfalfa meal, another really good microbe food. I think it's got good nematodes in it. I haven't looked at any alfalfa meal under the microscope yet. But just a sprinkle. And drop in my heater. Summertime you don't have to worry about it, but wintertime it's good to keep your water between 72 and 78 degrees. This is all I'm going to add for my sugar source. Basically what sticks to my stir stick. If you add a lot of sugar at the very beginning of the process, there's a much higher risk of your tea being just full of like too much bacteria, and some of that can be bad. One of the drawbacks of teas is the diversity of bacteria you're cultivating is a good thing, but it's also its main drawback. You don't necessarily know exactly what's in your compost tea. There could be some bad stuff, theoretically. Now we've given, I don't know how many teas we've brewed, hundreds, and we've never had a bad experience given aerobically activated compost tea. But the potential is certainly there for bad stuff to happen, especially if you're using compost you're not familiar with. could have a whole bunch of anaerobic bacteria in it. You don't know what the inputs were, so I feel good about this because it's my compost. I know everything that went into it, how it was made, and I've used it a lot. The anecdotal evidence is there for me, even though the scientific evidence isn't quite there yet for compost teas. So I'm going to brew this for 24 hours. You can go up to 48, but I definitely don't recommend going longer than 48 hours. It's just, the benefit's there after 24 hours. You're not going to get any better of a tea after 24 hours. So make sure you use it immediately. Don't let it sit on the shelf for a few days or anything. Use it within 24 hours. Ideally, use it the second you pull your air stone and heater out of there. So that's all for now. We're gonna set it for 24 hours and I can show you how I filter it out and give it tomorrow. So it's about 18 hours since we started our tea. I'm gonna add our fermented plant juice. Not much. I don't add much sugar anymore. I think on our last video I added quite a bit more sugar. But the more I learn, the more I realize a little bit goes a long way. We're just trying to multiply the biology. We're not really trying to make a super slurry like I think I used to say about making compost teas. So that was 1 teaspoon, so I added half a teaspoon per gallon of our fermented plant juice. Disclaimer, if you are making compost tea and you do want to add a carbohydrate, the gold standard right now is fish hydrolysate. You can order that online. We just haven't made any yet. I really like using only things we can make to a certain degree. Some of the mineral stuff we can't make here on the farm, but for a sugar source, the fermented plant juice is awesome. Comfrey is a good plant to use for fermented plant juice, and you can really go down the rabbit hole with FPJ and Korean natural farming, but it's been my favorite sugar source to use. I experimented with a bunch of different types of molasses, but sometimes the tea would start to smell like overly sweet, kind of almost like a sweet alcohol, like a hard cider. I never saw any bad effect on the plants from using it, but using less sugar and a more complex sugar like the fish hydrolysate is a good option if you're looking to use a sugar. But you don't need one. You can just aerate your tea for 24 hours and that works just fine as well. So we're gonna let that brew for a few more hours. I'll come back, filter it, and we'll give a foliar-feed. Hey, we're back to finish with our tea. I used a bubble bag. That's for making bubble hash, but it works awesome for filtering teas. Put it in a 5-gallon bucket. Pull our heater and air stone. Oops. If you're just using a watering can to water in, you don't need to filter it, but I highly encourage you to give it as a foliar feed. And in that case, you definitely want to filter it. This is the 175 micron bag. So it does a really good job of filtering out all the fine particles so it doesn't clog up your sprayer. And in the summertime, when we have stuff growing, whatever's left in the bag, I'll go around and top dress a plant that's maybe not as happy as the others, and this will bring it right back. But now that it's winter time, I'm just gonna go give it back to the worms. they can reprocess it. We'll use it for another tea at some point. And that's it. That's our finished tea. We're gonna go use it right away. You can use just a sprayer like this for houseplants. This is awesome. Outside, I use a backpack sprayer, or you can just throw a pump in there and use a hose and water it in like that. So after we filter the tea, put it in a sprayer like that, we find that foliar feeding is the best application of compost teas. You get the most benefit right away. This is a lemon tree we've neglected and we're now reviving with our compost tea. Haven't really done anything with it since summertime. This is the second one, and all of a sudden we have bud sites, flowers, whereas the plant was pretty much dormant for the last 6 months. So we dropped the ball on compost teas for the houseplants, so now we're catching back up. This cool little cactus started sprouting flowers.
Foliar feeding's easier outside when I'm not trying to get the walls all composty, but I also don't really care getting it on the wall.
And we're giving it at full strength. We don't dilute our compost teas at all. You can if you want to spread it further, but we kind of stopped seeing a benefit below 25% compost tea. So if you really want to stretch it, I recommend not dropping below 25%. And if you can swing it, give full strength every chance you can.
Goes without saying, but don't drink your compost tea. It's delicious, but so some of the stuff we just can't really foliar feed as much, and I just put it, really foliar feed, just still spray it, water it with the compost tea. It still has a crazy good benefit.
This is a collection of plants we did not give compost tea to. You can still use your dead plants in a cool, constructive way.
I have heard of it reviving people's dead plants, but that's typically when it's still in the ground. It doesn't do anything for cut plants. The only thing you have to be careful about with using compost tea on like your succulents and indoor aloe cactuses is just to not overwater them, really. So it's not about the tea, it's about the liquid that's in the tea. Don't overwater your plants. Always err on underwatering. These blooms have been in the orchid for just about a year, I think. The only thing I do is give it a little bit of compost